series, but I'm just going to just rearrange it a little bit. All right. Where I'm going to do the Bible study or go over the scriptures a little bit later in this series. But I want to go on and get to the prophet Jeremiah. This is what this segment is going to be about. Okay. This is going to be actually part 3 here, okay, of this series. And just jump right into it. All right. The prophet Jeremiah, okay, is Judean. Okay, now this is basically the south part of Israel, all right, after the split when King Solomon passed away. Okay, a Judean prophet whose activities spanned for 4 of the most tumultuous decades in the country's history, appears to have received this call to be a prophet in the 13th year of the reign of King Hosea, and continued his ministry after the siege and capture of Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 586. Okay, so this is at the time where Jerusalem was suffering a lot of strife at the time. Okay, and the King Hosea is supposed to have died. Okay, and when I say strife, okay, is basically where the Judeans, many of them, were into paganism, idolatry, money, okay, and they had lost focus with the Most High. All right. Jeremiah's purpose, all right. His purpose is his early messages to the people were condemnations of them for their false worship and social justice, with summons to repentance. He proclaimed the coming of foe to the north, symbolized by boiling pot facing from the north in one of his visions that would cause great destruction. So when he says the north, he basically meant Babylon. Okay. Now there was other countries that the Israelites, that is, okay, were also venerating as far as in gods and partnerships with other tribes in that region where they were not supposed to have those relationships with, i.e. the Philistines, which now is called the Palestinian people, Egyptian, Chaldeans. And Chaldeans were pretty much the people in Babylon, but they were the southern part of Babylon, okay? Assyrians. So, but by then the Assyrians already had the north part, okay? But they could not invade the Judean part of Israel, that is, and Jerusalem. They were spared, okay? But that was short-lived. Let's move on. All right. So I just want to talk real quick about the Lamentations, okay? Jeremiah did write the Lamentations, and it has been traditionally ascribed to Jeremiah. Probably one of the grounds of the reference of 2 Chronicles 35:25 to the prophet composing a lament on the death of King Hosea. But there is no reference to Hosea in the book and no reason to connect it to Jeremiah. Okay? So there was a possibility that he died. There's a possibility that he didn't die. But theory has it that this king had died probably from the invasion from the Babylonians. Okay? Because pretty much I believe that the Babylonians, they had enough. Okay? Now, the Book of Lamentations was written not simply to memorialize to the tragic destruction of Jerusalem, but to interpret the meaning of God's rigorous treatment to people to the end that they would learn the lessons that passed and retain their faith in him in the face of overwhelming disaster. And I said this incessantly, that actually that God, okay, through his prophets, all right, they wanted to try to work a social contract with the Judeans and the Israelites. All right, but this was on them. Okay, and I guess God eventually left, and this region ended up becoming invaded. All right, but then again, the God that loved the Israelites and Judeans enough to where he wanted to restore faith, but he wanted, first of all, to soften the hearts of a lot of the older people, bring them back, okay, reform Israel, build a new temple, and make new reforms and so forth, and also introduce with a new king, and that would happen later on in the New Testament, okay. But basically, the purpose of the Lamentations was to mourn the destruction of Jerusalem. So I want to get real quick, get in my notes real fast, okay, about book of Jeremiah, okay, the weeping prophet, which is for a reason, okay, for the weeping, which I just told you before about the period of Lamentations, okay, the mourning of the destruction of Jerusalem, okay. He was son of Hezekiah, okay, he was from a priestly line, okay, 13th year of the reign of Hosea, one of the last kings that were legit, okay. This period happened between, in which he preached, was a 50-year period between 625 BC and 575 BC, okay? So he had continued to preach well after the destruction of the siege of Jerusalem, okay? The things that he preached was against idol worship, okay? Social injustice, that's what it basically led to. He warned that those paradigms would cause a path of destruction. Okay, he preached in the streets. Okay, he reenacted. All right, that what people will go through under the siege. All right, so he actually done his own reenactments. I'm sorry. He was rejected and ridiculed. All right, so, but he was able to see this invasion, the siege, and exile. All right. By this time, as I said before, with the Israelite and also the Judean partnerships with Egypt and other gods and so forth, all right, the temple was filled with pagan gods. Okay, instead of the temple venerated with Yahweh, all right, then you see statues of Tammuz and Ishtar, which are pagan worshipers, and you can learn about them, those characters between Genesis 6 and 13, okay? He was slandered, misrepresented, warned against Babylonian prophecy, okay? And you could see that also like in Kings, Leviticus, Chronicles, and Jeremiah books, all right? He was accused about being a traitor to his own people, okay, from his own people, all right? He was allowed to stay initially, okay? He warned not to flee Egypt, okay, but was sent to Babylon and died there, okay? Some of his partners were Daniel, Habakkuk, Ezekiel, all right? They were students of Jeremiah, okay? And they lived long enough to see the Jews return back to Israel, okay? Because Jeremiah was considerably older, all right? As I said before, he was the, the author of Lamentations, and Jeremiah was ridiculed by his people, questioning faith in God himself, okay? But he did keep the faith. Chapters 10, okay, is about ridicule. Chapters 20 is about violence, trials and tribulations, and chapters 40 to 42. All right, but nevertheless, that God did protect him, okay? He had a partner named Baruch, okay, that wrote the book himself, including his own book, the book of Baruch, but that book was never published in the Bible because it's not canonical with our Bible that we have as we know it. All right. So he sent prophets by God. Okay, they were sent prophets, but to prophesize to Israel, but they were stubborn. Okay, they were very, very stubborn and hard-hearted. Okay, God did promise of a restoration. Okay, some notable scriptures, if you read it from chapter 2 to 45, prophecies concerning Judah, the comfort of Israel. This is chapters 31 to 33, chapters 46 to 52, judgment from other countries, okay, and the fall of Jerusalem, because this didn't happen in Jerusalem. And if you can read, or if you listen to the Isaiah segment, I said the same thing there, that there were surrounding countries or surrounding lands around Israel as well that also faced judgment, okay? He was selected for a special task of preaching Gentile Jew nations, okay, and he was not overcame. Then that's a good thing, okay? And there's a reason, as I said before, why Israel was judged. Money, idols, transgression, pleas were futile, okay? At one time, the queen, the worship of the queen of, or the mother goddess Ishtar, okay? Demonic delusion, all right, perpetrated by Satan. You can look that up in chapter 16, 18, 19, and 25. Spoken warn about this woman. Okay, you could also see that in Genesis as well. Okay, child sacrifice, paganism, and slavery. All right, he preached about the army, as I said before. Okay, and the child sacrifice and paganism. Okay, the god of that is the god Molech, okay, which basically is the god Nimrod, all right, the pagan god, all right, which is basically Ishtar's son, okay. He was warned not to marry, have children because of pending judgment, and it does say in Ezekiel during the end times, even in America, that it's recommended not to marry or to have children during those times because America is going to be judged. They're going to be suffering the same thing as the old world has suffered, okay? As I said before, okay, the judgment is based on what they deserve, all right? So this is not God's fault, all right? It's God that did what he had to do, and he had to try to restore Egypt and soften their hearts, all right? But this was it. He did say that this was Israel's fault. And so did the prophets, said that through God. Okay, so Israel, they suffered the curses of Deuteronomy for not keeping the Most High in mind. Okay, and you can read that in chapter Deuteronomy 28. All right. So, blood curse of the divine family, but return to the New Testament. Joseph and Mary's kingly family. Mary's physical line is Nathaniel. All right. So you'll learn more about that in the New Testament. But the priestly line, or the line of the Messiah, was preserved during that time, okay? And also during the period of the Agrippa, okay? That's the period between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's about 350 years. He did spoke of wicked kings after King Solomon, Micah, Hezekiah, okay, for validity, okay? So he did warn for over 40 years, okay? You could read this, chapters 26 to 34, chapters 46 to 41, hope, okay, but judgment for the nations, all right? Destructions, okay, you could read that in 2 Kings 25 as well for the same incidents, okay? And that being said, I'm going to go on and cut that off right now. Read the scriptures on your own, and I'm going to go on and move on to the next segment, either Ezekiel, okay. I'm going to go on and go to that young man. All right, thanks for listening.